Welcome to the Life of Hair. My name's James Atkinson. Thank you for joining me in this week's episode. Now, this week's episode is, as the description says, this is the most powerful hairdressing tool on the planet, bar none. What is that tool, I hear you ask? Well, that tool, I'll tell you about that in a minute. This video came about because of a great conversation that I had with a fellow educator, a guy called Neil, who is a educator by trade. He heads up the education over at Lisa Shepherd's salon here in Birmingham, England. Check his Instagram out. There's actually not a lot of hair on his Instagram. He's very into textiles. He's got a textiles degree, and he very much likes to merge sort of conceptual hair art, I would probably as far as go to say. Anyway, you may be interested. Here's his Instagram. Check him out. Anyway, thank you for this, Neil, because it's one of these topics actually that I've kind of skirted around because it's such a personal thing, actually, a consultation. But then once he started talking to me about consultations, I did go away and think to myself, actually, you know what? It's a massively powerful tool, and it's probably the most important tool in my hairdressing toolkit. I am not the greatest colorist. I am not the greatest hair cutter. I am proficient in what I know and what I do. And this has earned me a decent living for a very, very long time. But it wasn't the actual application or the implementation of the skills that I'd learnt that really made me a good salon hairdresser that was earning a good living. It was my ability to communicate with others, talk to people about what they wanted from their hair appointment. So in this episode today, I'm going to talk to you about how I think about how I go about my own consultations. You may do it differently, you may think of different things, but look, what I've done so far has got me by beautifully. I've easily surpassed the six-figure turnover for many, many years now. And for me, as I said, it's not about wonderful technical skill. It's about getting the consultation right. I have a saying, the root of all evil is from the consultation. E.g., if you get a complaint, 90% of the time, consultation is to blame. There is a 10% anomaly, but we won't go into that. You know what they are. Anyway, the point is that if you get that consultation bang on the money, if you drill down deeper than you really want to go into the consultation, you will find out what they do and don't want and how you can help them. So if you enjoy this episode today, then please do me the massive favour, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and chat to me down in the comments, because I know that other people are going to have some interesting opinions about this one specific subject. So, where do we start this consultation? Where do we go with this consultation? Well, I'll tell you where I always start a consultation, and that's with a greeting. I know that's really, really obvious, but the amount of times I've seen stylists walk up to a new client and drearily take themselves over to a brand new client and just say, "Hi, are you here for a consultation?" What? That is no way to greet somebody. One, you need to know who they are and what their name is. And then you need to greet them with their name. "Hi, I'm James. I'm here to do your consultation today. Would you like to follow me?" Take them to wherever you're going to sit them there. Don't expect them to sit themselves down. I know there are some restrictions at the moment, COVID related. The other thing that I would always do is shake someone's hand. Definitely don't want to do that right now. But, you know, that is one of the kind of things that we don't want to be doing. But truthfully, there is a host of ways of greeting people. You don't have to shake their hand. You know, I like to do a little bow these days. How you greet somebody is massively important to that first impressions. They're scanning you up and down. They don't know you from soap. You know, this isn't your familiar, regular client. How you greet them will make all the difference. Believe you me. Got them sat down. Where are you? Standing above them? Towering over them? Well, I recommend you sit down, you get a stool, you get a chair, you get on eye level. I wouldn't have a conversation with my friend towering above them. Oh, how's it going? You all right? Yeah, not bad. It's just bizarre. You wouldn't do it and I wouldn't do it. If you met your friend, you'd sit down, talk to them eye level. So it's a really, really great way of having an engaging conversation. Where do we start the consultation? How can I help you? They've come for their hair. I've made that mistake so many times. In fact, there was one time I made that mistake and it was the last time I ever made that mistake. I sat a gentleman down in my seat and I said, how can I help you? And he turned around to me and he said, I want a effing haircut. Okay, he'd obviously had a bad day. Very rude of him, I appreciate. Look, he was right though. He didn't have to deliver it the way he did, but he was right. He'd come in for a haircut. He wanted me to tell him what he wanted that day. He wanted me to lead the conversation because that's what he paid for. I mean, this was in a very expensive West End salon. That was indicative of the nature of the clientele. They want you to take charge. They're paying for your service. They want you to take charge. I'm not saying you're going to have to endure that sort of abuse, but what I am saying is don't start with, how can I help you? What do you want? They want their hair doing. Here's a great opener. What are the worst things you've had done to your hair to this point? What would be the one thing that I could do to you that you would hate? Those two questions unravel a whole host of problems because you're going to automatically know what not to do. And if you automatically know not what to do, then you can avoid it like the plague. That is always my opening question. What don't you want? It also catches a lot of the clients off guard. They start telling you about hair services that they had in the past that may contradict or have contraindications about what they want in the future. It's a really fantastic way to get the conversation going. The next thing I asked them is, how did you hear about me? The reason I asked this question is because they may just have been recommended by the receptionist. They may have just been happened to booked in with me for a consultation. They may have been told by their friend about me, or they may have found me on Instagram. Now the last one is probably one of the most powerful ways to be discovered by a client. And the main reason for that is pure and simple. They've seen the quality of your work already. They know what you can deliver them. There is no need for them to second guess your ability. So you can be safe in the knowledge that all is well in their minds. Now, if you don't come in with that pre-thought of you, that already recommended type of scenario, they don't know what you're capable of, they don't know who you are, and you've got a lot more work to do. So you've really got to be a lot more engaging, a lot more enthusiastic, and a lot more them-centric. Now, I'm not saying I wouldn't be if they came in anyway, but you know, you don't have to prove yourself in any way, shape or form. They know you know what you're talking about because they've seen your social. When if someone doesn't know you, you have to make up that ground where they don't necessarily know you know what you're talking about. So starting with that, what's the worst thing that I could do to you conversation is just a great icebreaker, and it gets that conversation flowing. And by the way, those first two questions, it doesn't really matter which way you ask those questions. I like the shocking, what's the worst thing I could do to you, what's the worst thing you've had, opener, straight off the bat. I like the conversation to start with energy. Look, the conversation can simmer down, but I want like a positive vibe happening. I want, you know, engagement from this client as soon as possible. The next thing to talk about is, what do they want? We know what they don't want, but what do they want? Do they have an idea of what they want? Do they have pictures? Great. Love, love, love pictures. I know when I started hairdressing, loads of people just hated pictures. Everyone hated a picture. But actually, as a hairdresser, I think pictures are the best tool ever. There's two sides to that coin. They could show you half a dozen images that are all slightly different or very different and want some kind of conglomeration of all. Or that they could show you a bunch of pictures that are so far away from what's achievable for them, it's ridiculous. Now, lots of people would see that as a negative thing, but I see it as it being able to turn it into a positive thing. What you've got to do is make likenesses from their hair to the pictures they're showing you. So if they're showing you with someone with a natural 7 base and they're a 5, that's something to point out. If they're showing you somebody with a natural 7 base that's been lifted up to platinum white and they want their hair to be level 5 up to platinum white, that's something to point out. You need to break down their images into things that they can't have about those images, so that conversation starts to turn into what they can have from those images. You need to be able to paint a picture in their mind of what's achievable on them. This picture's got natural level 7 roots with level 12 ends. We're not going to be able to get your natural level 5 hair there without creating an extreme amount of damage. Now, they may also have their hair previously pre-coloured, and that means that there's probably zero chance of getting them right up into that super white realms. The other thing to mention when we're looking at pictures with our clients is taking the best bits out of a picture. When a client looks at a picture, they don't look at it as a whole picture like we do. They get zoned in on one area. So I always say, which part of this picture is it that you specifically like? Soon as we get into that territory, we're on to a winner, because we can pick out the best parts of that image or those images and start to put them on the client's head with words. You can have your hair that light, but you can't have your root that dark. You can't have your roots like this, you can have your roots like that, etc., etc. Now, as we're talking about this, I start to unravel lifestyle and maintenance. So I say to the clients, okay, we can make your root colour 2 shades lighter, but it's going to create maintenance. You're going to have a dark root come through, you're going to have a light mid-band, you're going to have lighter pieces towards the ends, you're going to need your hair maintaining much more often. Are you willing to do that? Because most of the time the clients say no. So if they're not willing to do that, then all of a sudden what they wanted or all the pictures they came with are starting to kind of not work for them. So you can say, look, we can leave your natural root, we could lighten up the hair, but we can't get it that light because you're naturally a lot darker than the lady in the image. These are the things that I can do for you to your hair. Now, they might be disappointed at this point, or they might be like, great, thanks for the suggestions, you're a professional, I'll take your word for it. Because trust me, you, yes, you are the most influential hairdresser to that person right then, right at that minute. No influencers, no YouTubers, no Instagrammers, nobody. You are the most influential person. Do not be led by the images that they've brought in. Do not lure yourself into something that you cannot achieve. Always keep it achievable. I always do my tutorials in a simple way, an achievable way. Do your consultations in a simple and achievable way. What might happen if you start leading them into a place where they don't necessarily think they want to be? They can get annoyed and they can start trying to steer you back to the images. But you need to stick with your guns. You can only do so much with their hair. You can only get so much out of their hair before you even know about the condition. Now, the condition may be glaringly obvious to you, but it also may not be glaringly obvious to you. We're going to get onto that in a second. But look, stick your guns. If you can't do it, don't do it. Do not do their hair. We know lots of salon owners out there do not like it when I say do not do someone's hair, but that is the truth, guys. Do not do their hair. Because no one wants free redos. No one wants bad reviews. No one wants them to tell all their friends. Nobody wants these things. So please, if it cannot be done, if they cannot accept what they've showed you isn't achievable, Do not do it. Just say to them really politely, I don't think I can achieve what you want today. You can refer them to a colleague to keep them in-house, or you can refer them to another salon that you think may be capable of doing it. Or you can say, I don't think what you're looking for is achievable on you within the maintenance parameters that you're looking for. Bearing in mind, we haven't talked about condition yet. We will get to that, as I said. And you can just politely wrap the conversation up. Because eventually they might just say to you, well, where does this leave us? You can just say, well, this leaves us without me being able to do what you want. And I don't want you to be upset with me because I haven't done what you want. So you might need to find somebody else to do this for you, unfortunately. They might be able to do it, but I know I can't achieve it. They will respect your honesty always. Trust me on that one. Now, let's say you get to the point where you're agreeing to disagree, or you're in agreement, but you're not really sure about the condition. Strand test, incompatibility test, porosity test. Now, I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of how to do all of those things in this video because it's going to make it way too long. But I will do videos actually over the next few weeks on those 3 tests that are great to do in salon to prevent yourself from having a car crash client. So do subscribe if you haven't already, or keep your eyes peeled for those videos. They'll be coming up really soon. Something that I'm really passionate about is testing before we do any work. Also really passionate about doing consultations prior to the appointment for new clients. 100% of the time. You must skin test. Please skin test your clients. It's not worth the lawsuit if it all goes wrong. You need them in the salon a minimum of 48 hours prior to their appointment anyway, so you may as well do a consultation. It's not difficult just to marry those 2 things together. So just think of it slightly differently. If you're not doing it at the moment, it's time to start. So, where are we at? We've talked about what they don't want. They've showed you pictures of what they do want. We've discussed whether that's achievable. We've done a strand test, an incompatibility test, or a porosity test. Where does that leave us? That leaves us in 2 places. Recommending new things entirely. So you better have some ideas up your sleeves at this point, because you can say to them, look, none of these things are achievable on your hair due to porosity, due to incompatibility, due to your hair being damaged. Whatever happens in those testing scenarios, okay? Or you can say to them, look, the maintenance side of this you don't want. Here are my suggestions. And that's where you can jump in with new ideas. But do not be offended if they don't like those new ideas. And give them time to think about it. Don't let them make irrational decisions based on your recommendations. It can all go seriously wrong if you start jumping in with recommendations and people start kind of jumping at them, but you haven't really given that client time to think about it. Because here's my thing. If the consultation hasn't gone smoothly from beginning to end and you started to recommend brand new things, your client doesn't buy a £200 jumper on a whim. So they're not going to buy a £200 hairdo on a whim. $200, $100, doesn't matter. Hair's expensive, guys. Let's never get it wrong. It's an expensive purchase. So we need to be assured that the client is 100% on board. So if they need time to think about it, you give them that time. You say, would you like time to think about these suggestions that I have made? I'm always on the phone. You can call me up later. I'm happy for you to come back in. Just give them the freedom to breathe and think. Don't rush them into your column, booking them in willy-nilly because they've, on the spur of the moment, decided to change everything. That can also lead to free rework. We have to be very deliberate about our consultation style. It's really, really important. The last thing to do, and that is skin test, as I'd said. Quote them the price so they know how much it's going to be, and break down the quote into segments. Balayage, toner, Olaplex, cut and blow dry, just so they know what they're paying for. You don't go to Tesco's and they give you one great big bill at the end with no breakdown of everything. Now, if they start to say things like, well, can we not take this off? Can we do that? Can we do this? You can say, I have given you the minimum requirements for the service that you require on this sheet. There's no added extras or things that you don't need. What about taking the Olaplex off? Well, if their hair is in amazing condition, you can obviously go forth and do their hair without Olaplexing. But you can also explain that in the future, it may be limited to how light you can lift their hair without that treatment in their hair. So you're telling them the options. You're giving them everything that they can have. You're telling them what is available to them so they don't go to another salon for another consultation and get offered something by that stylist, like Olaplex, that they didn't get offered by you. Because that also makes you look like you're not giving the service that they fully require. Don't forget, this is also a great time to talk about maintenance at home, protein treatments. Massively important, guys, that we hone in on all of these things. Now, this sounds like a really long-winded consultation, but it's so important because it saves you time. It saves you money. And it saves you the energy of someone not liking their hair, which, as we all know, really is massively draining. So where does this leave us? Well, this leaves us right at the end of the consultation. They're either going to book in, they're going to think about the price, they're going to think about the changes that you've offered, they're going to wait for your tests. I recommend you try and get them to book in if you can. You can always delete that appointment, but it's harder to get them to come back in or call you back than it is to book them in. So always aim to book them in, unless there's something that's really blocking the way. But for me, that is the consultation in a nutshell. Now look, it's a whole different ball game when it comes to new clients. It's much easier, but make sure you're doing consultations with your existing clients. Consultations are a great way to upsell, to create new revenue streams, to introduce new products. For now, I think that's everything that can be said for me about a new client consultation. And as I said in the beginning, definitely the most powerful tool you have in your toolkit. If you've enjoyed this episode, remember what to do. All those engagements really help the channel to grow. Thumbs up, likes and comments. And I will see you again in the next episode of The Life of Hair very, very soon.